Dirty Birds, what's up and welcome back. I've got Tori, McElhaney, and Terrin Waack. Will McFadden here with you. The pads came on for the first time in training camp, so on today's docket is just breaking down the energy, the kind of what we saw out there from the trenches, the run game, a lot of good stuff. And then on the back end, you guys will get to hear from Dan Graziano, who does some amazing work over at ESPN. So loaded show today. Terrin, we're going to start with you, though.
Hi.
Pads came on. How you doing?
Hello. Hello, yes, I am here.
You just gave me like the most innocent look. You were like, yes, hello,
I
present.
am innocent.
So what were the overall just kind of feelings and vibes from practice today?
The first two plays really showed from the bat of 11-11 work the enthusiasm that the team has with pads on, because Carlos Washington Jr. took the ball and ran it the first play, and you could just hear both sides on the sideline being like, oh, like you could hear the clash and then the eruption of cheers. Mm-hmm. Like, it didn't even matter how far he got, just like the beating, banging was finally present, and it kind of excited both sides of the ball. And then on the second play, Carlos Washington Jr. at it again. There was a little scuffle. Like, it wasn't nearly as big as Sunday, and we didn't record a podcast after Sunday. So to recap quickly, there were two rather large fights and a third minor one. So they were pretty aggressive too. Mm-hmm. But today, a.k.a. what day of the week is it?
Today is Tuesday. Yeah, we're at the point in training camp where I don't know what day
it's
it
practice
is.
Time
4.
is a flat circle.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's practice 4. I don't know what day it is. But for practice 4, they came together and it was like a little bit of like, uh-oh, is it going to happen again? But it settled down really quickly, which I know is what Raheem Morris said he wanted to see. It's what Jeff Ulbrich said he wanted to see. It's what Dwayne Ledford said he wanted to see after Sunday's practice, where it wasn't what they wanted to see because it crossed the line. But yes, pads on and the excitement is there.
Yeah, they're kind of in the process of fine-tuning, I think, a lot of the mindset and mentality that they want. And Raheem has been very quick to say, look, I'm not putting an identity on anybody. The identity is born out there on the field. Mm-hmm. But it is clear that they, want to see a certain type of makeup and mentality from this group. And so far, I think they've done a decent job of cultivating that. Again, it's spilled over a little bit into some intense moments, but I think they'll take that to get you ultimately where you want to go. Mm-hmm. One thing that you never really want to see, in addition to fights out there on the field, are injuries. Mm-hmm. And we did get a little bit of an injury update from Raheem Morris about Darnell Mooney today. Tori, you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, so as we noted in podcast previously, Darnell Mooney on the very first day of practice goes down pretty hard with a deep ball from Michael Penix, lands on his shoulder, walks off on his own with the trainer, and it was a shoulder injury, going to be out for a few weeks. And that was kind of where things landed. Well, today was the first day that we really got to talk to Raheem Morris specifically about that injury and about what the prognosis is. And this is funny because this is where I was, and I was like, I even said to Will and Terrin before we started recording, I was like, am I reading too much into this? Because he was asked, Raheem Morris was asked today during his presser, like, what is the prognosis for Darnell Mooney? Like, are you concerned at all about him potentially being ready for week 1? And instead of being like, no, we're not worried about him not being ready for week 1, it was like, well, it's a few weeks and we'll reevaluate at that point. And in my head, I was like, that's
because you're such a pessimist. You're such a worrywart.
I know. I truly am. Like, have you been talking to my therapist? Because
just no fingernails. They're all
gone.
Off.
I've broken 2 nails literally today. I have 2 boy nails and 3 girl nails. And so
I have 10 boy nails.
Same. Honest to goodness, was just sitting there and I was like, oh, this is not good. Like, this means that potentially Darnell Mooney, like, are we really talking about not having Darnell Mooney for week 1? And it kind of led to my question that I presented to Raheem like a couple of minutes later, like, hey, going back to Darnell Mooney, like, who's kind of the replacement now? Whose value on this roster kind of increased with more opportunities to see the field? And he answered it pretty well, talking about like Darnell being the X and like how you have clones of guys.
Which that right there is interesting. Darnell being the X, because I think body type wise, you'd look at Drake and be like, that's your X. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, Raheem was very adamant that like, nope, that's Darnell's spot. And so, and you see a lot more of Ray McLeod. You've seen a lot more of like the duos of, instead of it being kind of a Ray McLeod, Darnell Mooney, Drake London lineup, it's more Drake London, Ray McLeod, and then a couple of tight ends. Like, so there,
Kaderil Hodge
has been in there. So it's been interesting. But I say all that to ultimately say, like, I took it as oh no, like
As like a little bit of a worrying sign.
Yeah, I took it as being like the fact that Raheem didn't come out and just be like, well, like we're trying to be overly cautious. It's training camp, like it'll be a few weeks, like but we're not worried about him not being there for week 1. It was like, well, it's a few weeks and we'll reevaluate after those few weeks. Yeah. Did y'all take it that way?
How'd you take that, Terrin?
It didn't ring any bells in my head. I'm just
being paranoid.
I kind of just took it as a few weeks and then we'll figure it out. Like, I took it as they're not worried because it was said so laissez-faire.
That's I kind of took it that way too, where it was more just we don't necessarily have any specifics. It's still early and there is no real urgency to get Darnell out there for preseason. Like even if he was healthy, let's say he comes back before that first preseason game, I would probably be of the opinion that like, hey, that's all well and good for him. Put him in bubble wrap, and then we'll see you week 1, Darnell. So, like, even given that is kind of the case, I took it as, like, it's a few weeks, we'll reevaluate where we are, and then kind of give an update from there.
Yeah. Okay.
So hopefully that's the case.
I do also think because we've seen him at practice, and it's not like he has a sling or like he is bubble
he's
wrapped.
been walking around.
Like, I've hurt my shoulder before. If it's
that is true. Will has hurt his shoulder before. He told us about it. What was it? Wakeboarding?
That was the second time. The first time was motorbiking, which makes me sound way cooler than I actually am. Like maybe that's why I don't actually do action sports because like the 2 times I've done them, bad things have happened. So don't run away with that. Gee, I'm not that cool. But let's real quick before we kind of get to a bit of a shorter episode today up top because of the Dan Graziano conversation on the back end. So we're going to get to Camp Champ in just a second and kind of use that as an avenue to talk about a couple of other players. But before we do, we have seen a little bit of the kicking battle kind of take place over the last couple of practices. Terrin, I know you have been eagle eye on that, or I guess falcon eye would be the better place or better thing to say. But what have you seen from the kicking battle?
Well, the first time we saw them kick any field goals, and them as in Younghoe Koo and Lenny Krieg, I always want to say Kenny because Lenny the kicker.
Right.
But it's Lenny Krieg, was on Sunday. And on Sunday, Krieg hit all 5 of his, and Koo was 4 of 5. And today, they both kicked 5 apiece again, and they were both 4 of 5. Lenny Krieg missed from around 55 yards out, and Younghoe did the same. We noted his as 54 yards out. So it's a really tight battle at the moment. I do think this is a really big position battle for this offseason.
Yup.
So, yay, special teams.
Yeah. Terrin's sitting there like, yes.
Finally, other people are going to pour as much attention into special teams as me.
Our resident beat reporter for special teams.
And so, they're both kicking well. They both look strong. I mean, you're off by 1 at this point. It has only been 2 practices, but it is something worth monitoring and seeing what kind of reps they get as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had just kind of like visually, Krieg's kicks seem almost a little bit more like a wedge in golf where there's a little more air under it. And I think Younghoe's are kind of more of a driving kick.
They look so different.
I have no idea what to do with that information, but I'm just giving it to you. Like that's to my eye, that's what we've seen.
Yeah, with kickers, it's one of those things that you're just like, I mean, I'll let them do what they do as long as they're making the kicks. Like, I really don't care how they get there.
Personal preference. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter if you got a high arcing teardrop or you just kick it.
As long as it's going through the uprights.
Straight and true.
Yeah.
What has been really cool, though, is because we have seen Younghoe Koo so much in Atlanta already, to finally get a look up close and personal of Lenny Krieg. And he can kick. I remember his 55-yarder on Sunday. We were the media members and I were all like, that could have gone another 10 yards. He's got a leg. And so it really is a competition for, I'm not going to say for lack of a better word, because that is the word. That is the word.
Yeah.
And especially when you kind of saw the contract that they signed Krieg to.
Wasn't it 3
initially
years?
It was 3. Yeah. So that gave you, this is a legitimate competition.
Yes.
They're truly going to battle it out there.
What's the TikTok? Special teams.
Special plays, special players.
There you go. But let's go ahead and talk about a couple of special players in the Camp Champ segment.
Camp Champ.
We're working on my segues. You see that one, Si? Terrin, we'll start with you. Defensively, who you got?
Well, you set me up. You gave away that it's going to be a defensive player.
Okay. So there's there's 48 people that it could be instead of 90?
I'm going to go with James Pierce Jr.
JPJ.
He is just everywhere on that field right now. Like, you can see him working his butt off to show, I don't even want to say to prove himself, but to show what he's capable of. He's being lined up on both sides. So you see him when he's with the second team defense going against the first team offensive line. So he's lining up against Caleb McGarry and Jake Matthews. And then he's also going up against Charlie Warner and Tegan Quitoriano.
There you go.
Ooh.
Yeah, you got it.
I was nervous about that and now I botched.
No.
And then I botched pronunciation.
No, that couldn't have been
I
more.
know.
That couldn't have been better timing.
I loved it.
And on that note, JPJ.
Yeah. No, he has. So that was my story from today, was really talking about James Pierce Jr. and the infectious passion that I feel like he is bringing. And I say that because that is something that has come up in every conversation that I feel like we were in today, is James Pierce Jr. setting the tone for physicality, for energy. And I was talking to Leonard Floyd, and we were talking to him about Sunday's practice when James Pierce Jr. was in the middle of a few little skirmishes. And I remember thinking on Sunday, like, that's what you want. You have a defensive coordinator in Jeff Holbrook who says, we want to be a violent defense. We want to dictate terms on our terms. And so you challenge your defense to do that, regardless if there's pads on or not. If you challenge someone like James Pierce Jr. to go and knock up on somebody, like, that's what he's going to do. And he was doing that. And it was funny because Leonard Floyd was like, hey, like, at one point I turn around and I see a bunch of white jerseys just kind of scattered around this one little black jersey of James Pierce, and I'm going in. Like, yeah. I'm going to check in on my guy, whether he's right or whether he's wrong.
I love that.
And yeah. I'm sitting there kind of laughing, but I do think it's indicative of, what Leonard Floyd is saying. He's like, he was ready to work. He's ready to work.
That was the thing that stood out, was too. It was like, yeah, it's like a ride or die defense. I'm jumping in no matter what, but also, like, he's done the right things, which makes me want to jump in for him.
Yeah. And I'm like, keep doing it. Like, and that was the theme of today, is like, the defense is playing with some edge. And no pun intended, James Pierce Jr. has a lot of edge. He has a lot of juice. It's something that we talked to area scouts about immediately after the draft, and what he brings in terms of his level of juice and just getting after the quarterback. And he's not going to slow up or stop for anyone. And you talk about wanting to prove yourself, or maybe even not, maybe just showing up. But Jacques Smith, who is the outside linebackers coach for the Falcons, he was very much like, yeah, it is a little bit of like, hey, I am the rookie, and you are the vets. Jake Matthews, you've been here for 12 freaking years. Like, yeah. But I'm going to show you what I've got, and to prove that, I got something too. And I think, like, that's been fun for me to watch. I mean, how many times have we been able to kind of say that there is that juice coming off of the edge this early in training camp, before the pads even went on? Now the pads are on, and he's
backing it up. Yep.
Right, exactly.
And I like what you said about, like, I'm going to show you what I got, because we know James Pierce is not, the biggest talker in there. Although, wouldn't it be so funny if just, like, in practice he's running his mouth nonstop? Like, he's just the biggest chattermouth in the world.
Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me.
That would be an amazing aspect of his game. Like, I would want to know. I would want him mic'd up week 1 for sure.
For sure. Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to flip over to the other side of the ball for my camp champ, because one thing that has just stuck out so clearly to me, and it's the aspect of the offense we thought was maybe going to be the most clear-cut, the same because it's worked. I kind of think there's going to be some changes to the run game this year. And I don't mean like it personnel or anything like that. Obviously, Bijan and Tyler are going to be out there. Maybe at the same time. I would love to see that. But I feel like I've just noticed some more gap influence in this. And obviously, they've been a big outside zone team ever since Dwayne Ledford has been here. And it fits the personnel, but now that you're changing center a little bit, you do have Tyler, and they have talked about wanting to get some more explosive plays for Bijan. If you listen to the podcast with Ben Solak a few weeks ago, north-south is the quickest way to get those explosive plays. So just, again, file that away. I think getting that run game going. So the premier benefactor of that so far to me has been Tyler Algier.
Yeah,
which is why he's my camp champ.
Okay, great. Because that was the thing, is I was
like, why are you looking at me? But I realized I literally never said.
I know. I was like, I was going to help you out. I was going to be like, and his camp champ is Tyler Algier.
You were just like, yes, good points.
Tyler,
say words.
Tyler Algier. Talk about
really
Tyler
buried
Algier.
the lead. The lead was your clincher.
Yeah,
it was.
So with all of this, it's something that Will and I have actually talked a lot about in the 4 practices that we've been able to see is this gap style influence and the evolution of the run game. And how much do you, even though this outside zone is your bread and butter, just having Bijan Robinson jump it to the outside, run behind Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry down the right side of this line.
Yep.
That is what works.
Yeah. And why get away from something that's working?
And why get away from something that's working? But today, and to your point about Tyler Algier, today there was this one moment specifically where they started to, it looked like kind of an outside zone to the right with Tyler Algier. But instead of continuing behind Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry, you had Matthew Bergeron pulling up beside Chris Lindstrom.
Yeah, through that A-gap.
A-gap, and then Tyler Algier running behind Matthew Bergeron, and that was the one that, it was the one time that I felt like today it truly felt like something broke open, and not in a manufactured way, in a way that really was beautifully blocked and schemed in that way. And it was the one time that I felt like with Tyler Algier, I was like, there he is.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That's the one. So I love this Cam Champ specifically for that moment, but also to what we're seeing in scheme and influence, and also a little bit something about Robert Mays is going to be on the podcast really soon, and something that I talked to him a lot about was the Rams' influence.
Yes.
And how the Rams also, you think back to 2017, 2018, and being an outside zone.
I mean, Todd Gurley, that was, you just get him to the outside, get him around the defense, and let him turn upfield.
Let him turn a corner and get gone. But there, to a certain extent, good defenses pick up on that. Mm-hmm. So I almost wonder if, to your point, if this is Zach Robinson trying to get ahead of that. To be like, hey, teams know how good we are running the ball behind, just bouncing it to the outside down the right side of this field. Let's maybe not do that as much. Let's not go to it as much. And so it's interesting to see how much this is evolving within the context, too, of you now have Michael Penix in the pocket, who's going to stretch the ball way downfield, as we've seen time and time again. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. It's one that I'm like, let's put a pin in and come back to it in week 7 to see how much of this is actually showing up in real games.
When you brought up Robert Mays, they recently just had a show on the Athletic Football Show. Great podcast, recommended to everybody. But
highly recommend.
It was what lessons can we learn from the league's best offenses last year? And kind of the point I'll make about this is the continuity of Atlanta's offensive line, I do think allows them to kind of work on something like this. And the point they made on that show, using a team like Buffalo, right? Buffalo used a lot of 6 offensive lineman sets last year, which is a weird thing. So the more nuances and wrinkles you can have as an offense, the more that teams the menu of what they have to prepare for on a given week expands. So for the Falcons, having an offensive line that's been together, and Ryan Newsel starting 8 games last year, they know how to run outside zone.
Yep.
They know how to run outside zone in their sleep with their eyes closed.
Yes.
So now that affords you the opportunity, I think, to maybe work on some other things where for another team, maybe in year 1 with their offensive coordinator or their offensive line or what, they're still installing what would otherwise be maybe a more simple type of philosophy. But here you get to build on it because of what that continuity affords you.
I like it. And let's just be real, too. I think that, to your point about having Ryan Newsel in there, I think people are sleeping on Ryan Newsel right now because I have been very impressed. I know they're not running at 100% capacity.
Are they snoozling?
They're snoozing.
I kept that in.
Yeah.
They're snoozing on Newsel.
Snoozels.
The snoozels. God.
I kept that one in.
We're off the rails. I think that what he has been over the 4 practices and what I feel like, I'll be honest, I was the first one to say I wasn't 100% sold on the Falcons' decision to go full, no holds bar on Ryan Newsel being the starting center. I'm like, this is an undrafted free agent. You're not even going to bring in some veteran competition. And he has pleasantly surprised me in his role, I think, even within that as well, in having this more gap style run game. His piece of this matters too. And I just wanted to give Ryan Newsel his flowers. And Rukaroro said, and I quote, that he is stump-like a tree stump, and it has become my favorite quote of training camp so far.
Yeah, we got stumps, we got snoozels. He's just endearing himself left and right.
Yeah.
He's just the best. Yeah, my favorite center in the NFL by far. All right, well, we have talked for a long time. Let's keep talking, but let's do so with Dan Graziano. of ESPN. So again, thank you guys so much for listening today. Our next show will come Friday. So for anybody, following along, marking their calendars, be on the lookout for that. It'll be after the third padded practice. But for now, let's go ahead and get to Dan Graziano. NFL insider Dan Graziano joins me, works for ESPN, does an incredible job over there. Dan, thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure, Will.
So we are talking on Saturday. The Falcons just wrapped up their second open training camp practice. A lot of fans out on the hill.
Yeah.
Pretty hot out there. What was kind of your initial impression of the team?
Well, I think watching practice on this particular day, it seemed like the defense was making a lot of plays. It seemed like there were some pass breakups, there were some forced fumbles, and that's I think it's early in training camps that tends to happen. But it's got to be a good sign because there's so much new on that side of the ball for Atlanta this year. So I think that the more you see from them in terms of the ability to grasp the system and make plays, I think that's got to be encouraging. And then talking to Raheem Morris after practice, he said he was really happy with the way that Michael Penix handled the fact that the defense got the better of the offense today. That way, when he gathered his guys, that he was he was sending the right message. He was communicating the right things. So I think that's the other thing that you have to be happy about, is seeing his leadership ability as he enters this year where he's the unquestioned QB1 to start. And obviously, this is a player that, as we all know, 6 years of college football, has all this experience, but one of the reasons that they liked him pre-draft was that he has natural leadership abilities. So I think they've been very happy with what they've seen from that, and based on what was told to me after practice today, it seemed like he was doing a good job of that.
Yeah, it was something that really stood out to us after kind of the first practice as well, was when he spoke to the media, just the level of confidence that he had, the command of kind of the room, and it was a little bit of not a full departure, but in year one, you heard about how kind of quiet he is, right? And I do think leadership is different for every single person, but it is interesting to kind of hear you say that the way he handled maybe a down day for the offense is just as important as when everything is going right, and being able to galvanize everybody.
I think so. I was talking to DJ Williams, the quarterback's coach, and he said he's authentic. So when you're a leader, that's the trick. You have to be your authentic self, and he always is that. And another word I heard today a lot about him was consistent. So I think that's the kind of thing. And if you have that, and he's a guy that has, again, 25 years old, so older than a lot of second-year players. Oldest of three brothers, I believe. He's sort of been in this sort of leadership role for a while. So I think that's the cool. So whatever your message is, right? If it's a positive or if it's a negative, or if you got to get on guys, at least they know who they're talking to, who they're hearing from, and they trust it and they believe in it. So I think he's a young player, and I think we saw a lot of good stuff at the end of last year. Some stuff he needs to work on, but I think he's got that. From what I can tell, he's got those characteristics you look for in that position.
Yeah, and the physical tools are apparent.
Sure.
We saw those in 3 starts. We saw him at Washington. But he's already dealing with a little bit of adversity here. Darnell Mooney going to be missing some time after banging up his shoulder in that first open practice. DJ Chark signed by the team. We'll start maybe with DJ Chark. What does he bring to this Atlanta offense? Well,
a veteran, I think, in a room that if Mooney's not a part of it, is fairly young, right? So I think that's key. And earlier in his career, he was known for his speed. Is that still there? I mean, he's so I guess we'll see. They liked what they saw in the workout, and I guess they felt an urgency to sign someone after Mooney went down. But it sounds like there's a couple of young guys they wanted to get a look at on the roster in terms of, if they have to fill in. I don't. They're not saying, but I don't get the sense that they're worried about it being something long term that bleeds into the season. Right. Obviously, you can never know. But if it were that, then, and even if it's not, then at least you now have an opportunity to see some of these younger guys in maybe an expanded role throughout camp and throughout the preseason. So if DJ Chark can be a helper, that's great. But I think having just met him, right, the team is probably not sure what to, and they don't want to put that on him. So maybe some guys who've been here throughout the offseason might be, might get a little bit of a longer look.
Yeah, because there were some games last year where you could argue that Darnell Mooney was the number one receiver for Atlanta. I mean, the immediate connection he had with Kirk Cousins was apparent, and that Tampa Bay game, 2 touchdowns, he definitely was a huge asset for this offense, and I think they have high hopes for him in year 2 as well. But what about Drake London? I think it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy Fowler did the top 10 position rankings, I believe, for y'all, and Drake's not on that. I understand why when you look at kind of the national perception, but here in Atlanta, like, he has done everything that's been asked of him. What do you think of Drake?
Well, I think he's awesome. You see him out there and you see why, he looks like a number one wide receiver. He's built like a number one wide receiver. Right? And we've seen the things he can do going back to college in terms of contested catches in the end zone and everything. So there hasn't been, as you well know, a lot of consistency or stability at the quarterback position here since he's been here. So you kind of give him a break on that. But I think he's a guy that heading into year 4 now, right? So they pick up the option and maybe he's in line for an extension at some point. But I think, he has to have that number one wide receiver season. That in terms of productivity, in terms of consistent week to week and piling up yards and touchdowns, and I don't see any reason why he should. I mean, if Michael Penix can play quarterback in the NFL, then I would think Drake London should be something like a star receiver.
Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball, and obviously the Falcons, like all offseason talk, is the pass rush. Falcons say, hey, we hear you. We're going and we're using 2 first-round picks on pass rushers. We can table the first-round pick part of it in that trade maybe. But now that we're here, now that they're on the field, what do you expect to see from James Pierce and Jalen Walker?
I always feel like the pass rusher is a spot where rookies can contribute right away because there are third down situations where you just say, go get the quarterback.
Yeah,
and they know how to do that, right?
See quarterback, hit quarterback.
Yeah, and I asked Jeff Ulbrich about that, and he said, both those guys can set the edge too. So it will work with them on the run game, knowing that the pass rush is there. And I think they see them as kind of different kind of players in terms of what their role can ultimately be. But helpers in the pass rush that needs help. And then the Leonard Floyd signing is very interesting because this is a guy going into now his 10th season in the league. He's been many places. He's won big, and it sounds like he is embracing the veteran leader role with those 2 rookies, which is fantastic. I mean, that's not necessarily why you sign Leonard Floyd. You want him to help you sack quarterbacks, but the fact that he sees himself that way at this point in his career is only going to be a benefit to those young guys. So, yeah, the pass rush has to be better. They obviously know that based on the offseason moves that they made, and we'll see. A lot of resources, obviously, into that position, and it's a big one because if you're talking about late season games, if you're talking about ideally playoff games, that's what you need. You need closers. You need guys that can finish and get the opposing quarterback on the ground in the fourth quarter, and obviously this is a team that has struggled to do that.
And when you're looking at kind of the overall makeup of this team, you have an offense that if Michael Penix can step in and play the way they expect him to, all the pieces are there for this to be a very good offense. You could be looking at some high-scoring games you are leading in the fourth quarter. You want closers on that other side of the ball.
Ideally, right? I mean, all those top 10 picks on the offense. So you feel like it's, and if you can get the run game going with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, then you can build some leads and work on that. I think that's what they would like to be. The shootout with Washington end of last year was fun, but you'd certainly rather be the only one shooting. Right. And so, and that was, so I think that's it. The defense is going to be interesting. I get the sense it's going to change more than maybe some people might think. So we'll see. Scheme-wise, I think it'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
What was kind of your initial reaction to Jeff Ulbrich coming back here in Atlanta? We saw, obviously, in an interim capacity, these 2 guys working hand in hand, and they're the pros of that immediate kind of reliability and communication that they've developed. But, some people could say, all right, doing it again. Where did you land on that? I
think they know each other. We're talking about him and Raheem Morris. They know each other well. They know each knows how the other works, what the expectations are, and relationships are very important in this business and life in general. But I think, after what Jeff went through last year, I think, finding a comfortable landing spot is probably good. But also, I mean, look, he's well regarded. He is. He's somebody that knows the place. He's been here. He knows Raheem, and he knows what the expectations are. So it made a lot of sense to me. What happened with the Jets last year, I don't think should be held against Jeff Ulbrich. I think he was put in an impossible situation, and sort of did the best he could. But he's obviously a talented and intelligent defensive coordinator who his addition should be a benefit.
Yeah, I do think the interim head coach role is one of the toughest spots to be in, probably in all of sports.
We haven't seen too many guys hold the job.
Not many.
Yeah.
Two more for you. One, I want to talk about Bijan. We kind of have talked about Michael Penix, talked about Drake, talked about Darnell. Bijan Robinson, I mean, it feels like he's already in that kind of rarefied air of the running backs in the league. How much more do you think we have left to see from him?
When you get picked where he got picked, you have to be special because that is not something teams like to generally do, is pick running backs that high. So you see, a Saquon Barkley is picked 2, and Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, was same year as Bijan, right?
Yep.
12.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he should be a guy you can play on all 3 downs, give the ball to as much as you want, and expect magic. And we've seen it in flashes for sure. But I think what's cool is they have Algier too that they really like, and the ability to put him in there to either be a complementary piece or to spell Bijan if he needs a rest. I think that's great. So Bijan seems like the kind of guy, when he's going well, you would never take him off the field. Like he's that level of weapon. But the fact that they have depth there, I think, is only going to help him as well. So, yeah, this is exciting, this roster. I mean, it is. You look at these players, you look at these names, you watch them walking and running around out there, and you say, it could really be something here. And obviously, I know it felt like that last year and didn't work out, but you were pretty close, and you beat the division champion twice.
Yeah.
So it feels like, if things really do come together, if Penix is what they hope he is, and if the defense improves, especially up front, it could be a lot of fun.
So let's wrap up right there. Tampa Bay, obviously, we know what they are. They are a consistent team. They're a good team. Has Atlanta, in your opinion, kind of done enough to really, really challenge for this division?
I say yes, but I would have said yes last year as well. And they did challenge for the. I mean, right? So Tampa Bay's won it 4 years in a row, and the year before that, they won the Super Bowl. So they're on quite a run that doesn't get talked about very much because other than that one year, they don't make a lot of noise when they get to the playoffs. So to me, if you're looking at these two teams, their roster looks pretty strong too. They're going to be without their starting left tackle for the start of the season, it sounds like, Tristan Wirfs, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. And they don't want to get too far behind, certainly. But I don't see any reason why this team doesn't have enough to compete with and beat them out for the division. You're talking about making picks at the end of July, beginning of August. That's tricky. I always say, tell me who's going to get hurt, and I'll tell you who's going to win.
That's a fraud exercise for sure, yeah.
So, but I think I would look at it from this standpoint as a close race, probably favor Tampa just because of that track record. They know how to do it, and we haven't sseen Atlanta break through yet, but I don't see any good reason why. Again, they beat them twice head-to-head. They obviously can compete with them, so I think there's no reason not to expect it to be a good race at the very least.
Hopefully it's a fun season, and hopefully it comes down. Hopefully it doesn't come down to the wire, Jarvis.
No,
hopefully we just.
You want to be Buffalo last year? They clinched their division with 5 weeks left.
Yeah,
that's who you want to be. Think big.
I'm just thinking about the content, but I need to be thinking big. All right, Dan. Thank you.
5 weeks of playoff previews. Wouldn't you love that?
Yeah, I would. That would be great. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. This was a blast. Everybody, please go check out all of his great work at ESPN.